Mitch Rizito reporting for SouthingtonSports.com with Athletic Director Mr. Eric Swallow. We're here to talk about a few things today, expectations of parents as well as some conflict resolution. So let's start with expectations of parents. I know there's a lot of stuff that goes around, there's a lot of problems that you deal with. What are your expectations for parents of our student athletes?
Well, I think one of the things that we really try to do, and I try to address this through coaching education, is that we mandate that all coaches need to have a parent meeting at the beginning of the season. More or less just to lay out the parameters of how the season's going to work, what the logistics are, what the function of the coach is, what the role of the coach is, what the role of the student athlete is, and what the role of the parent is. And I think it's really important to try to sustain and maintain communication. I think that one of the things that's happened, and I know that I'm a product of it as well, having children that play youth sports, is that youth sports are great, and I think that they build character, they build value, they help build technical development and understanding how to play a specific game. But they're playing in small activities where they're playing year round. They're almost becoming specialized in a specific sport, and they're also playing at elite levels where they're playing with premier teams, or they're playing with travel teams, or they're playing with regional teams. And what happens is when you go to the high school setting, you automatically assume that that's just going to make a transformation to the high school. I used to coach in high school. One of the things I always used to tell my student athletes is we are not in a type of setting where we can pull from an unlimited resource of talent or players. We have to work within the parameters of our community. And I think that sometimes there's a disconnect there. And I think that that's just not reflective on any one specific sport. I think that's across the board, where I think that they're seeing their student athlete in one environment and then trying to make the quick comparison to another environment.
Yes, it's completely different.
And it's completely different. And interscholastic athletics is very different. We have different parameters by the CISE. We're restricted in terms of when we can practice, how many times we can practice, when we can condition, when we cannot condition, contact periods, all those types of things that come into play that I think sometimes people don't fully understand. And I think that has an impact on expectation.
And I think automatically what happens is there is an issue with the communication process when it comes to high school athletics. An athlete is frustrated. Obviously, the first person they're going to go to is their parent. They're frustrated maybe with something, maybe they didn't have a good practice, maybe there's a legitimate reason why they're not playing, they'll go to their parent.
Right.
Then their parent automatically goes to the coach, and then problems arise, whereas there needs to be, like you said, a triangle of communication between the parent, the coach, and the athlete, so that these kind of, problems are avoided.
That's well said. That's exactly how I view it. It's a triangle. And I think that the student athlete is at the pinnacle of the triangle, and the coach is there to support, and the parents are there to support. I think that, and again, I'm going to reflect back on my own personal experience, because I did have the opportunity to coach at the college level, and then I obviously coached at the high school level. One of the things I always told my high school student athletes was that part of your growth and development is to learn how to deal with adults and how to talk to adults. Yep. And if you're unhappy, or if you're not sure of what your role is on a team, or playing time issues, or something that you just want to get clarified, the best way to approach that is go directly to the coach.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I talk to my coaches about, is I want them to encourage a communication with the student athlete.
Strong communication, and one advocating for oneself.
Exactly, because the thing about it is it's part of learning how to grow up, because when you get to the college level, I mean, when I coached at the college level, I didn't have any contact with parents. My contact was direct with my student athletes. And there was pretty much black and white in terms of what the criteria was.
Yeah.
And I think that we encourage that the student athlete go to the coach no matter what the sport, and try to have that ongoing working communication that's going to hopefully solve the problem. Because in the long run, there's going to be a better resolution. Now, if that doesn't suffice, one of the things that from an administrative perspective, they can always go to another step. But I think that a lot of issues can be solved at that level with simple communication. I think that's critical.
And I think a lot of it too is expectations with athletes. They just expect to play. They just expect to be given things when they need to be taught that sometimes you do have to work a little bit harder to get on the field.
Absolutely.
Because the coach is looking at what he's got for talent, and whoever's working the hardest out there. At least I think in high school sports should be the kids on the field, not necessarily the kid that's got a big head on his shoulders but doesn't want to work in practice.
Well, I have a lot of coaches who would like to win and have success, and I can tell you right up that if I'm a coach, I'm going to basically put the best players on the field that I think are going to give me the best chance to have success. And I think that I know for a fact that all my coaches feel that way. So it's not a personalized decision. It's a decision based upon the fact that at the high school level, again, granted, we're still working in the framework of growth and development. It's not Division I, college football per se.
Yes.
But at the same time, there is that component where it is competitive, and that your coach has to view it as such that I need to put the best available student athletes and talent on the field that's going to give me the best chance to win.
Developing that product, put the best product onto the field.
Right, and I think that sometimes that gets clouded.
And parents take things very personal as well.
Oh, no question.
Everything is personal.
No
It's
question.
just they have to realize that it's not personal. They're just trying to do a job as
Correct.
a coach, and you know that. You coached high
Correct.
school and
And,
college.
believe me, I think that emotion comes into play in athletics. There's no question. And like you said, it becomes more personalized when it's your own child. But I can tell you that from my perspective, I try to be sensitive to that and understand that, because I've had my own children go
Yes.
through youth sports, go through high school sports, and go through college sports. It's not easy, but you have to really sometimes take a step back. I always like to have a 24-hour rule. A 24-hour rule is an opportunity to debrief, to get away from the game, to think about it, and then maybe if something you want to address, maybe with the coach, or
Yeah.
that would be the better approach, because sometimes if you address it at the point or at the moment, that's when mistakes happen.
So since
And
we're
things become miscommunicated.
Yes. So since we're in the conversation of conduct of parents, well, let's give you your little chance here, to maybe just send a message to, parents of athletes of basically, what you would see as proper conduct of a parent. Just sum it up pretty much.
Well, I think be supportive. I think, one of the things that I can assure you that we make every day, I focus on trying to improve the program, to work with my coaches in terms of improving their capability as a coach, in terms of communication, to make sure that the environment is safe, and every student athlete has an opportunity to perform in that type of environment. But getting back to your central point, I think that the parents need to be supportive. I think when you go to games, is to be supportive.
Yes.
I mean, nobody's looking to try to make mistakes and give up goals or runs or baskets. I think that's a central focus. It's easy to get frustrated, but I think you really have to try to hone in on be supportive, because if you're not, then that's when things can get drawn into a negative light.
Yeah, and I do think that it's kind of what high school athletics are all about. Is it's a community-wide thing.
Correct.
The student athletes are the ones that are on the field, but outside of that, there's huge support groups. There's booster clubs around here that do so much for our sports programs. A lot of parents can get involved that way, but like you said, they can't live vicariously through that athlete. If they have frustrations about things,
Right.
it's not necessarily right to just go right to a coach or go right to your own student athlete, but just continue to be supportive.
Right, but there again, I think it's important to reinforce to your student athlete or to your son or daughter, hey, go talk to the coach. The coaches are there. Every coach has been educated and dictated to the fact that they need to be available. My door is always open. My coaches, I know that they reach out to their student
Yes,
athletes.
absolutely.
And there's no retribution. I think that's one times a misconception, is that, well, if I go talk to the athletic director, if I go talk to the coach, that there's going to be some retribution. No, I would never do that.
There's almost a fear or something
I would
like
never do that.
yeah.
I think it's important to hear people's views and to give them an opportunity to express themselves. No, there is no coach here, and I know for a fact out of my office, there's no thought process in terms of retribution.
They're
It's
just
to make the
made
program
available
better.
to the student athletes
Right.
and both to the parents. And like we said, with conflict resolution, if somebody
Right.
if a parent does have a problem, what would you suggest? Would they go right to the coach? Would they? How would they deal with
I
this?
think again, if the student athlete goes to the coach, and there doesn't seem to be a clear resolution, then I think it's important for them, the parent, maybe to step in and talk to the coach. Don't go over the coach. Talk to the coach.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that time, as we said before, the student athlete, the parent, the coach, the triangle of
That's triangle,
communication, right there, it can basically stay within the context of that.
So basically, student athlete on top.
Right.
Conflict comes up. First, we go down to the coach.
Correct.
That if it can't, because that should be the first,
Correct. Absolutely.
resolution
First,
to text
exactly.
things, and then after
Exactly.
that, we can bring the parent in. Obviously.
Absolutely, and then if there again, if it needs to go beyond that, well, then it should go to my office to the athletic.
And hopefully it won't have to, but I mean that, like
Well,
you said,
those
that
things,
outlet is always open and
again, when you're
available.
dealing with in an emotional environment setting, sometimes that might be the case. But I think I would say if you do it appropriately, that communication will solve almost 95% of all problems.
Well,
It really will, and it's just maybe, and in a lot of regards, it's a simple misunderstanding and an interpretation
yeah.
of because when I always look at it this way, when sometimes, and again, it's not a negative context, but when a parent goes to the game, they have blinders on.
Just
When
for the
I go to
child,
the game,
right?
I have 360-degree vision, because, and a coach does too, in terms of all the logistics and all the parameters that go into play as far as making a team successful.
And Mr. Swell, I just have to throw this in. If you look at one of the great conflict resolutors of all time, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Great communicator, got a lot done just through his words.
Right, exactly.
Didn't need much more, pretty much. I mean, it's just communication solves a lot of problems. If you work and you advocate for yourself and you communicate
Exactly.
and you get your points across in a respectful and responsible manner, I mean, I guarantee there'll be the results.
And this is the whole process here is to get student athletes prepared to go to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Southington has a rich tradition in sport, but they also have a rich tradition in having student athletes project on and play at the collegiate level,
Yeah.
and obviously go on to college.
Oh, that's
And again,
great.
you're not going to have your parents there to be, quote, your advocate. You have to advocate for yourself.
And it will be tough at times, it will be,
Absolutely.
especially in college athletics. It's competitive, I mean, Division 1, 2, 3, you name it.
I learned a lot more sometimes through my failures than I did through my successes.